These new polls that show President Trump's impeachment steadily growing support among Americans. Let's start with Quinnipiac, where 52% now approve a majority of the impeachment inquiry into President Trump.
That's gone up.
52%. When it comes to impeachment and removal from office, the Q poll found a 10% increase in support over just the last week, up to 47%. Meanwhile, the latest CNN poll found 47% of Americans say they back impeaching and removing President Trump. 45% say they do not. In the latest Reuters poll, 45% say the president should be impeached. That is up 8 points from a week ago. Meanwhile, two sources with direct knowledge of the situation told NBC News that President Trump is telling allies, and did days ago, that he would start worrying about losing Republican support if national polls went above 50% of Americans supporting impeachment. And as we just reported in that Q poll, we're at 52% supporting the inquiry, Joe.
Yeah, at 52%. And Willie, what's equally surprising and jarring is that, I mean, some of these polls involve the impeachment inquiry. Others involve removing him from office. And we're at about a 50-50 proposition on most of those polls. The Q poll, 47% want Donald Trump impeached and removed from office. He's got to be worried. But again, the move is not to chase conspiracy theories when you're worried. And I mean, don't you think, Willie, that's one of the problems? The Republicans, and this was reported today, that the Republicans are getting tired of Donald Trump's ad hoc attacks, getting tired of the calls for civil war, getting tired of the calls for treason. You know, Eric Erickson, pretty darn conservative guy who supports Donald Trump, just said the calls for civil war are only going to turn more Republicans against it.
Yeah, I think there's no question about that. And I think in this case, there's not some opaque Mueller report that we can't see into and we're waiting to see the results. We saw last week a summary of the phone call where Americans, including Republicans, could see for themselves what the president asked of President Zelensky. Then we saw out in public view the whistleblower report, which went into greater detail. This one you can get your arms around pretty quickly. And if you look at that polling, Americans don't like what they see.
This is what we've been saying now for days. You can't complicate something that is pretty basic.
Thanks for checking out MSNBC on YouTube, and make sure you subscribe to stay up to date on the day's biggest stories. And you can click on any of the videos around us to watch more from Morning Joe and MSNBC. Thanks so much for watching.